Good morning. Why? Oh, I don't know why I'm so yellow. I'm not super into it, but I think it has something to do with how I was Skyping yesterday. I don't know how to fix it except in Skype. So it might just be yellow for the duration. Camera. Oh, I bet I can do it in the camera app. Welcome to me going and trying to figure out how my computer works. Oh no. No, it won't let me. I just want settings. I just want settings. You just want, you know what? I'm just gonna be yellow. Oh, it fixed it. Oh, nice. Oh, I wonder if it just fixed it because wait, it's not fixed. I think it's just a lighting thing. Okay. Welcome. Welcome to Thank You Note Thursday Second Chances. Second Life, Second Chances. Wherein I take people who I earnestly put on my thank you note lists of the various weeks, and fully planned on writing thank you notes to anyway. And I'm just having you vote on them. Spoiler alert, whoever doesn't win in this is probably going to return. So, get used to seeing these names. That might not be true, depending. Well, it'll depend. But anyway, let's get right down to it. So, I'm going to real quick put the link in this chat here in case you have not voted yet. Also, I gave everyone 2 votes this time. I think in previous times I gave everybody infinite votes, and honestly, if you use like incognito mode or something, you do have infinite votes. It just takes a little bit more effort. The other thing is that you may notice, I doubt you will, but you may notice that there are a lot more results on this sort of on this poll than there are typically on the polls that I post for Thank You Note Thursday. And that has to do with the fact that I seeded this poll with the votes that each of these things had before from their last things from their last. I wanted those votes to count too. So if you voted for these things before, heads up, you're voting for them again. Twice. You get to vote for them twice. And if you took my offer to vote twice at all, then you are voting for them multiple times, more than twice. Let's start from the top. Justin McElroy. Why do we want to thank Justin McElroy? Justin McElroy is a purveyor of fine podcasts and also some videos. If I had been thinking ahead about this video, which I don't do, I would have made it into a stream so that I could then show you videos or audio of his that I think are funny. Because that is what he does. He is a comedian. I don't know that you would call him a comedian. I take that back. He's a funny dude. He's a funny fella. And he is the co-host of several podcasts that I listen to. The two podcasts I listen to the most often, certainly, are the Bim Bam, which is an acronym for My Brother, and Me. He is the oldest brother of 3, and his other 2 brothers are also on the podcast. And then the other one that I listen to pretty often is his serial podcast called The Empty Bowl, which he does with his friend Dan Gummy Bear? I don't know. But there's a man named Dan who does it. Dan runs a website called serialously.net, and he and Justin talk about cereal news, cereal reviews, and cereal information you can use. I made that part up. That's not something that they say, I don't think. And I don't actually eat cereal. I've never been a huge fan of cereal. And it's definitely not my preferred breakfast. So I don't really eat cereal, but I do on occasion buy cereal to then snack on as if it were like chips or something, like put them in a little container and then I just eat them out of that container. Because of this episode of this season's podcast, whatever. Because they talk about cereal in a very sort of like lovely, quiet, pensive, loving way. And so it makes me want to like cereal more. And sometimes every once in a while, I will try a cereal that they mention. And then you've got a whole box of cereal. That's one of the reasons I don't like cereal is you've got a whole box of cereal that you've got to finish. And so, yeah, I have a couple of cereals that fit into the category of cereals I got because Justin told me to. He is in general just a wonderful person. I mean, okay, that's not fair. I don't know him as a person. He has a wonderful personality that I know. The personality of his that I know is very wonderful. He he's a father of two small children, and the husband to a doctor, I think a family practitioner or a general practitioner anyway. And they have a podcast together, which I don't really listen to. I listen to sometimes because my husband listens to it, but he, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. He's just really funny and earnest. There was a moment on his most recent episode of his brother's podcast, of his podcast with his brothers, where he talked about, and I don't know how this came up, but he talked about how he has this passionate love for these big, like industrial strength garbage bags that he has. I think he has them because he bought them for his wood shop, because now in quarantine he has a wood shop. But he has them and he loves them. And every once in a while when he is cleaning up after like a project, he doesn't fill one up all the way. So then he puts the garbage bag in a centralized location so that people can use it instead of the small garbage bag in the kitchen. And then it will annoy him when people put large things in the small garbage bag in the kitchen when there is a big garbage bag centrally located. And if that's not the most dad thing that has ever been uttered, especially on a, as they call it, nationally syndicated podcast, I don't know what is. And it's just so funny because he's not that much older than me. Let's see. I think I did the math on this. His youngest brother is 3 years older than me, and he is 6 or 7 years older than him. So he's about 10 years. No. He's 9. He's about 9 years older than me, because he hasn't turned 40 yet. I don't think. I think he's 39. I think he's 39, turning 40 this year in November. But anyway. So it's funny just to hear him be so middle-aged because it's like, oh, I am also there. But I don't know. It's just this is sort of my first. Here we go. We have it up. Oh, it's a little boy. It's a little girl. Little boy is in here. So the little boy's now got to jump up and oh, here he comes. He's coming. Pippin. Ha-ha! Oh my God. Hello, baby. You look wild. You look undomesticated. Okay, well now you look domesticated. Hello. Why are you wet? Did Juno bite you? Juno bit you. So that's Justin. He is especially in these quarantine times, a great source of joy and light in my life. Next on the list, Vanessa Zoltan and Julia Argy, much along the same lines. So Vanessa Zoltan, I think, is the CEO of a production company called Not Sorry Productions, which is a great name for a production company, I must say. And the production company, produces a couple of really good podcasts that I listen to. Podcast is just like a thing. Did you know podcasts are a thing? And they're two, at this time, they're two very different podcasts from each other, but they're both very enjoyable. So the first one that I've been listening to for the longest is called Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, where so she and her friends went to Harvard Divinity School and became chaplains of various types. And they treat Harry Potter as a sacred text, which is it's something that we used to do in literature a lot, but we didn't call it that because in literature classes in college. I think what we did in literature classes in college was we called them great texts. And that's where you talk about the text as if you talk about the text and you don't talk about the author and you don't talk about the context. And you don't talk about the things that are happening outside the text that are influencing the text. You were talking about the text and you're reading it closely and you're picking apart words, and basically you're having the text transcend its mortal coil, and you're suggesting that maybe there's more to it than the author intended, and so it doesn't really matter what the author intended, or you don't need to talk about what the author intended in this particular context. That doesn't mean you never talk about what the author intended in this particular text, but it just means when you're talking about it in this way, you don't. And so that's what we called it in literature, I think that's what I remember calling it in literature, was talking about it in great texts. But they talk about it as sacred text because then they also do sacred reading practices or sacred practices, what do they call them? Well, sacred reading, I don't know. But they interact with the text as if it were a religious text because, as chaplains, that is something that they have a lot of experience doing. And they do sacred reading practices like, oh my goodness, I can't think of a single name of one. Well, they pull them from all sorts of different faith traditions, and they do that all to Harry Potter books. So they've gone through they're on the 7th book now of what at least originally was planned to be their first run through the books. They may not do anymore, which is a shame, but they are at least doing one pass through, and they're going to finish up the 7th book this year-ish. I don't know. They go chapter by chapter, and they talk about each chapter in terms of a theme. And that's Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. I've now talked about Harry Potter and the Sacred Text for like half of the time that I'm trying to be talking about something that's not at all Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, because Vanessa Zoltan and Julia Argy are Julia Argy went to Harvard as well, but for statistics or something, or marketing. I don't know. It's unclear to me. I can't remember. It's on her like bio on their page, but I always forget. But she is friends with them being Vanessa Zoltan and the other people who did Harry Potter and the Sacred Text. And so then they became, and now Julia Argy is like in a MFA program. But they started this other podcast called Hot and Bothered. And it's about romance novels. And I've definitely talked about this before. just in multitudinally, because of all of my talking about romance novels. But Hot and Bothered now for quarantine is doing specifically Twilight in quarantine. So they are reading through Twilight, not as a sacred text, although they are talking more about the text than they are about the author. And they're doing it very lightheartedly because it is a lighthearted podcast at this time. They talk more seriously and more in depth in previous seasons about other things, but for these times, they're just doing Twilight in quarantine. They were doing Twilight in quarantine. They're on New Moon. They're finishing up New Moon now. They did they did used to do it like 3 times a week, and that was amazing, and it was so great, and I loved it. I couldn't get enough. Now they moved down to like I think once a week because they didn't think quarantine was gonna last as long as it did. So they had to sort of like scale back a little bit, and I can appreciate that. So yeah, now they're doing less, but it's still very good. And the podcast is just really joyful. It's a joyful romp through some very silly books, where they give a recap of the parts that they had read, the chapter, etc. And they give they talk about what they actually non-ironically enjoyed about the book, the TV show, the chapter. They give advice to the characters, just life advice, and then they give they send a care package. If they could send one thing to the main character, it's supposed to be Bella, but they send it to other people too, or send it to Bella to give to someone. They would give her, like an item each week. One time it was a Prozac. A couple times it has been articles of clothing because Bella is complaining about being cold or wet. Various things. And it's a fun way to talk about a silly book, and Vanessa Zoltan and Julia Argy, their friendship is really fun to listen in on and hear. So Vanessa is in her late 30s, mid 30s. I don't even know. I don't know what the distinction is. And then Julia is in her mid 20s, maybe something like that. And so they're sort of like dynamic matches with some relationships I have with people who are just getting out of college or who are still in college, because there's enough of an age gap there that, like, I don't know, I'm just like on camera just dealing with a paintbrush, whatever. There's enough of an age gap there that we have different experiences and we have different sort of like perspective on things, and most of the time it's just funny. It's not meaningful really in any way. It's just like, oh, I watched Friends the first time, that sort of thing. Which honestly I don't remember now if I did. I definitely didn't watch very much. This is non-germane. I'm moving on. And then lastly, but certainly not leastly, my roommate Mark. And I want to go back, and I should have said this at the beginning, but I wanted to talk specifically about the things that I wanted to thank them for when they were on my list at the time, because some of the people that were on my lists at the time it was very clear when I put them on my thank you note list at the time. Very clear why I wanted to thank them. It was like the DFW Animal Control. It was like the APOD NASA guy. Like there's sort of like one sort of reason that I have to thank them. So there was no question ever. But some people are on there, and there's multiple ways that they have blessed my life and that I should be thanking them. And so I want to go back as these second chances things. I want to go back to how I wanted to thank them originally. and stick to that. This way, it allows me to possibly bring them up again for different reasons, but we won't worry about that right now. We're just going to worry about them this one time. So that's it. Mark, what I wanted to thank him for originally, and what is still the case, was for teaching me how. So I lived with Mark in Pittsburgh from, I was trying to figure this out for the first video, and I don't remember. I think it's 2015, 2018. And then also we lived together-ish in college. We lived in the same dorm for a year. I guess it was only a year. I don't know. We're just such good friends. And and we still do a lot of like virtually hanging out. It's one of the nice things about having lived so far away from all the people I care about for like most of my entire adult life, is I'm very good at virtual friendships. So, well, I say very good. I'm not very good. Most of my friendships are virtual, I guess is one way to put that. So we still talk and hang out. We were just playing D&D the other day. We played some other video game the other day before that. I don't know. So yes, friendship abound. But the reason I wanted to thank him is because when we were living together, he and I have a lot in common in terms of like the things that scare us, or the things that we value, or the things that interest us. But I think that Mark has a lot more follow through than I do. We both, I can't really do this anymore just because I don't live with Mark anymore. But we were both pretty good at like binging television shows that we liked, and that was fun. We were both pretty good at. I mean, we both like Pokemon Go. We were social introverts. I think Mark would classify himself as an introvert. I'm not really sure, but like people who like people or like to be around people, but for a very limited amount of time, and then want to go home. And then but then also like we value mental health and taking care of oneself. And Mark did things that he enjoyed even when they weren't the easiest thing to do. So I got into this sort of rut of basically constantly watching television. And if I wasn't watching like a TV show, I would just watch YouTube videos over and over and over again and just veg out. Like there was no better way to describe it than vegging out. I was a vegetable on the couch in our house. And that was not always what I wanted to do. It was just the easiest thing to do. And it was better than some of the alternatives. But Mark, sometimes I'd come home from life, and back when we used to leave the house, and I would come home and he would just be like painting or something, or he was a potter. He still is a potter, a ceramic artist, and he'd be making little pinch pots, or he would be that was more work for him, but he did a lot of art and reading and going on walks and stuff because he wanted to, because that was something that he enjoyed. And even though it wasn't the easiest thing to do, it took more effort than just sitting in front of the television and watching it. He did that. And that is something that I'm still learning to do, is to take care of myself in meaningful ways and not just, sort of walk the path of least resistance when it comes to taking care of myself or my taking care of my mental health. And Mark was a very good model for me for that. And so that is what I would like to thank him for in this particular case. All right. We have 9 results, which means we have 4 results on top of the results that I added in previously. So hopefully you've gotten your results in. You've gotten your votes in. And we're gonna let's start timer. That's weird. I don't want to do that. Show responses. All right. Okay. All right. Well, this is also unexpected. To me. Maybe to no one else. Justin McElroy has 5 votes of 9. Vanessa Zoltan has 2, and Mark has 2. Vanessa and Julia have 2 together. And Mark has 2. So Justin McElroy is who I will be writing a thank you note to. Now, this is excellent. He has a P.O. box. This is not hard. I know exactly where to send this. Question is, postcard, definitely. His dad is he's sort of a comic book person. But who am I kidding? I'm not a comic book person. I just like the aesthetic of comic books. So basically Star Wars or DC Comics. That's the question. Star Wars or DC Comics? Probably Star Wars, honestly, because he might know more about DC Comics than I'm comfortable pretending to know. So let's do that. Okay. We've got our Star Wars. Jeez, why is this hard to roll? Okay. Star Wars Legacy. Shadow of a Dark Lord. Adventures Beyond, the greatest space fantasy film of all. Still only 35 cents. I don't know. There's nothing's screaming to me about this one. Star Wars Underworld. Now this is interesting. Star Wars The Last Jedi. What if they had used this as the cover art of the movie? I mean, it doesn't say what year. It just says July, which makes sense. Shadows of the Empire. Grab a laser gun, Chewie. They've got us surrounded. Tales of the Jedi. That's a hut. I don't like huts. Huts live on Hutta. In case you are curious. Nightblood. Jedi versus Mandalorian. Luke and Leia trapped in a living starship. Ooh, Leia doesn't look like she's human. Actually, neither of them do. Yikes. Well, what is that? I don't understand. If you have any thoughts, the one person who's watching this, if you want to put it into chat, which one do you think I should do? I'm now looking at chat. I wasn't before. Hi, Mandy. I don't know if you're still there. What's this guy's whole deal? He's got 2 sets of arms and he looks like a little baby inside. We're going to go with this one, I think. Let's see. I don't know. It's a very good drawing of Christopher Lee. General Kenobi. If you watch TikTok, those are some of my favorite TikToks. Is the ones where the sound is General Grievous I'll have to find them. I keep saying that. I'll have to find one and put it on the description. And you're not gonna watch this. Okay. I took all my pens out here. I put them elsewhere. There's gotta be just like a straight pen. Well, I've got Sharpies. That one's red. Let's not use a red Sharpie. That's hard to read. Blue. Hey, this is sort of purpley themed. We'll do a purple. Okay. We're gonna do the P.O. box first. Because sometimes I don't leave enough room for that. All right, this is P.O. Box 54, Huntington, West Virginia, 25706. All right. I wrote that down. Okay. Now, to thank him. Dear Justin, I should probably say something about his brothers. Dear Justin. Don't tell Travis or Griffin about this. They didn't get cards from me. Tough work. Thank you. I'm going to make this pretty simple. I'm really tempted to just say thank you for being a light in the dark places when all other lights go out. Just a quote from Lord of the Rings. I don't know if he has memorized that movie in the same way that I have, so I don't know if it'll go over very well. But I'm just going to do it because it's fast. And it's accurate. Thank you for being a light in dark places when all other lights go out. Mary Margaret. And then because I'm super needy, I'm gonna put the YouTube link in here. Not a link when it's handwritten. Okay. That was fast. That was a fast one. Honestly, I did not expect Justin to win. So there we go. Thank you note Thursday is complete. I actually have the pre-prepared the poll for this coming week. So probably if you're not watching this live, by the time you watch this, it will be live, the new poll. So feel free to go to that link and vote on next week's. Thank you note. It's been a joy and dream streaming with you all. Make good choices, don't do drugs, etc.